at the label, but don't be home.
All right, good evening, everyone. This meeting is being held with the benefit of public notice as required by the Public Meetings Act. Madam Clerk, would you call roll?
Mr. Carabelli?
Here.
Ms. Phillips?
Here.
Mr. Whalen?
Here.
Mr. Patero?
Here.
Mr. Todd?
Here. Would everyone please rise for the flag salute and the invocation?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Dear God, as we gather for our Township Council meeting tonight, we humbly ask for your guidance and wisdom in our deliberations. Grant us open hearts and minds to listen attentively to the needs of our community and to make decisions that are fair, just, and beneficial to all. May our discussions be respectful and productive, guided by a spirit of unity and collaboration. We pray for your blessing on our council members and the decisions we make this evening. Amen.
We have a Board of Health meeting tonight. May I have a motion to recess as the Township Council and convene as the Board of Health?
So, second.
Do we need a roll call on that?
Mr. Carabelli?
Yes.
Ms. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. Whalen?
Yes.
Mr. Patero?
Yes.
Mr. Todd?
Yes. Good evening, Kathy. Thank
Good
you for
evening.
joining us. Thank you.
Good evening, Board of Health members. Thank you for having us. As always, it's a great pleasure to be here and provide you our report from the Division of Health. The Division of Health is dedicated to maintaining the health and well-being of all of our residents and visitors by means of prevention, health promotion, and education. This evening, we will provide you with an update on their public health goals and objectives, the continued progress on our journey towards national accreditation, as well as the accomplishments of the entire department. To keep us up to date on the accomplishments of the Division of Health, we invite our board members as well as our residents to take a moment to visit the Township website and read the Division of Health's 2024 annual report. Our health officer has also provided you each with a hard copy. In addition, our Animal Shelter and Adoption Center posts monthly statistics and updates on our shelter webpage. We encourage you to take a look at that as well. Our health department staff continues to provide the state-mandated services, and our animal shelter continues to provide the best quality of care to the animals in our shelter. The animal shelter has been and continues to be a top priority of this administration, as well as one of the health department's highest priorities. In our animal shelter, many tasks are accomplished through a lot of hard work, passion, and dedication by our employees and volunteers. Oversight is provided daily, and management continues to evaluate, reevaluate, and revise policies as needed. The shelter operations and environment is an extremely sensitive operation due to the passion and high emotional level of our staff and volunteers. And it is that drive that provides a nurturing and loving environment for our shelter animals. In addition, I've asked Chris to continue to reach out to two of our most faithful animal advocates to ask if they have any questions prior to our meeting tonight. This approach will hopefully offer transparency and provide all concerned parties a clearer picture of shelter operations and oversight. At this time, I would like to ask Chris to provide you with a complete report on the Hamilton Township Division of Health for February 2025.
Good evening, and at Council's request, I'll try to keep it an annotated, brief overview tonight. So tonight I will give the board and our residents an update, general health update, and an update where we stand with accreditation, our updated community health plan, strategic planning, and then I'll end with an animal shelter update, and then be available for any questions that the board or residents have. So as Director Fitzgerald had mentioned, we had completed our 2024 annual report. We did provide a hard copy here to our council, but it is also available to the public right now on the website at hamiltonnj.com/annual report. And then we also have soon there'll be hard copies available for residents to have at the library and at the health building as well if somebody wants to have a hard copy to review. But this report highlights all of the great work that our department had did throughout the previous year, and it also compares where we stand to the last 2 years, so 22 data, 23 data, and then also the 24 data is in there as well. So starting with environmental, our environmental section, they started a pilot project in 2024 based on reviewing the 2023 data that showed our risk 3-4 establishments. And those are the establishments where they're doing like almost a high risk or special type of process. So, our brewery is considered a 2-4, risk 2-4 based on, because they have a specialized process, but it's, kind of lower risk food, with the beer and everything that they're making there. But if you think of kind of our sushi restaurants, that, reduced oxygen way and of preparing food to make sure it's safe is a specialized process that would consider them a 3-4 establishment. So we started inspecting these restaurants twice a year based on poor inspections that we've been receiving over the last number of years. So in 24, our inspectors were able to have an increase from 33 to 44% for our compliance rates, overall. So we had an overall improvement there of getting restaurants passed, the first time around with a satisfactory. And then even just from their first routine inspection, it was to their second without having to go on conditional. It went from 33% to 55%. So this is something that, while these rates still are not great, and we still have a fair number of establishments still, when they're getting inspected, being placed on a conditional score, we are seeing some improvement. So this is something that we will continue in 2025. We've also seen a huge increase in the number of single event and temporary event permits that we've been issued. So just from 22 to 24, we've seen a 45% increase in the number of temporary and single events that our inspectors have to go out on. So that's our food trucks, the school PTA pop-ups, any other, fundraising event that there might be a food truck or food being served to the public that our inspectors have to go out many times after hours and on weekends. And we try to make sure that we hit each and every one of those to make sure that our residents have, healthy and safe food options are available, because we do, even at some of our township events, we do have, some, food trucks that either have, they need more time, or reminders that, yes, you still need hot water and hand washing stations, even if you're a food truck or a temporary setup. But, the inspectors are great at working with them and giving them our vendors options to make sure that they're able to still participate in the events. And very rarely do we actually have to send vendors home, because we're able to, work with them to get them up to compliance, which is great. But it's still a burden that our inspectors have to do. And this year was the first year in a long time that we did exceed and meet our overtime budget for the environmental health section. Kathy, were you going to say something?
I was just going to say this is big, because years ago we only did it one time a year, and years before that it was difficult with the number of inspectors. Our inspectors have really stepped up their game, not only to make sure that we follow the state mandated inspections, but go above and beyond. So when Chris talks about risk 3 and 4, they're the important establishments that truly can make us sick. And so therefore they've upped that game to make sure that those establishments are in compliance. So kudos to our inspectors and to Chris for doing it, really getting their own pilot program together, seeing their data, and that drove them to increase their oversight. So we should all be very proud of that. So I am as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's when we also eventually talk about accreditation, this is part of, we can't just force accreditation on the staff. They really have to buy into it. And it's great seeing, the staff across the board really buying into it and wanting to see and make improvements. And this is something that, came up from the staff of looking at the data, reviewing it, and then coming up with options. They did this with our pool inspections as well, which is something last year we came to council and asked for a pool ordinance change. And we did see, and I believe that's highlighted in the annual report. I didn't pull it out up here, but we did see I believe there was a little bit of an increase in pool compliance as well, because that's another area where we struggle with not so great compliance with our public pools.
Chris?
Yes.
Just a quick question. With the 2-4 risk level?
Yeah.
I mean, that doesn't impact anything on that, from that grouping, right? That's not, we're still making sure that we're out there once a year for.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. That's a good point. So we do all 550 plus of our licensed establishments get inspected once a year. More if there's complaints, we do complaint-driven inspections, but specifically for our schools and for our risk 3-4 establishments, they get inspected twice a year.
Okay. Thank you.
So moving on to nursing, as I'm sure probably everybody in here probably knows somebody who has recently been sick with the flu or, influenza-like illness. It is going around. We have not seen levels like this since the 90s as far as just the number of sick people going to the hospital, being admitted, and just being overall sick. So it is not too late to get your flu shot. Even though the shot is not great this year, it's not a great match to the viruses that are circulating. It's still better than nothing, and there's no guarantee that you'll be exposed to the virus that is covered in the specific strain that is covered in the vaccine versus not covered in the vaccine, and it'll still offer some better protection than not having a flu shot at all. So if you have not gotten your flu shot yet, the health department still has plenty of vaccine available, and you can just call or reach out to the health department, and you can come in and get that vaccine, or at your neighborhood pharmacy, they also offer it as well. But, stay home if you're sick, cover coughs and sneezes, wash your hands thoroughly with warm water and soap. If not, at least some sort of hand sanitizer, as long as your hands are visibly clean. Also, between 2022 and 2024, our STD clinic has seen just under a 40% increase in the number of clients seen. And just to remind everyone, we do have shared service agreements with every single municipality in the county minus the city of Trenton. So we do provide that service, and we did recently increase those fees to help cover some of the extra costs that we're seeing for patients, and that went into effect this year with the rates. During that same period, our child health clinic saw an increase of 16%, and that's mostly Hamilton. We do see some clients from Robbinsville, but the vast majority are all Hamilton residents that we see within our child health clinic. Our nurses also go out each year, and they're in the progress right now of doing it for 25. But they go out to each of the schools, including our daycares, to make sure that all of our students' immunization records are up to date and complete, and to make sure that they're following state mandated vaccine rules. 71% of our schools received 100% on the initial audit, which is good, and an improvement over 2023, where we had 61% rate on that. But we do have some room for improvement. And some of this is just that there's a lot of turnover in some of our daycares and our schools of the school nurses. So, there is a loss of just, internal knowledge of what needs to be captured upon enrollment. But unfortunately, if students do not have the proper vaccine records, they can be excluded from school, which is not what we want to see. So we do try to work with these schools, and we give them multiple chances to correct these deficiencies. But if they fail to correct them, after a certain period of time, that the students do need to be excluded from school until they, fix or provide those vaccine records. Or, in the worst case scenario, the township could take action against the school and levy fines if they're really not, doing their due diligence to to follow those rules.
Chris, is there a minimum as far as vaccines that they need?
Yeah, so there is, and I don't have the number of vaccines off the top of my head, but there is a vaccine schedule that's required. So, like, for example, the biggest piece where we see a lot of issues is their daycares, which requires flu vaccine for those who are under 59 months of age, they are required to have an annual flu shot every year. So that's typically where a lot of this, the scores go down is for the daycares and preschools, because they, not everybody meets that requirement. But then eventually, once they find out that then they're required to be excluded from school starting January 1st, that's when we get all the documentation coming in or exemption letters, or we're able to make sure that they're able to attend. We don't want to exclude anybody from school, and to my best of my knowledge, it doesn't happen, or if it's a very short period of time that the school will exclude any students. But that's based on the conversations between the parents and the schools and whether or not that they can comply. We have not forced anybody out. As far as trending topics, we have seen bird flu is here. We know that it's in Mercer County. We know that it's in the state. We know that it's in the country. But the most important thing to remember is there is no reported human cases here in New Jersey. There's only been a handful across of the country at this point. The risk is still low, but it is important to take precautions when handling any animals, especially when you're handling sick or dead animals, and in this case, birds. We are asking the public to avoid contact with any sick or dead birds at this point. We know that there's been some sightings here in the township, in our parks and in people's, on people's property. And, if they do have any residents, they do have any dead birds to report, they can just contact Hampstead, whether that's over the phone or on the online submittal form, and our ACOs can help arrange for pickup, and the ACOs will take care of that. Residents who may wish to dispose of the birds themselves, we're just asking that they double bag the carcass and place it in the trash. When handling any dead animals, please wear disposable gloves, and then of course wash your hands thoroughly after the fact. It's important right now to also be monitoring cats and backyard flocks for any illness or unexplained death. Bird flu does seem to have pretty terrible consequences for cats that are exposed up to the virus, and it can be very similar to almost rabies-like neurologic symptoms that they can experience. So if there is any, that's one of the animal populations that we want to be very mindful of during this. It's not just birds, that there are other animals that we do see being affected by this virus. I'm sure folks have heard about the dairy cattle industry as well being highly affected, but we know that that's where some of the data around cats. And of course, if our companion animals get sick, that increases the likelihood of human exposure as well, which we of course don't want to see, because it is a pretty serious virus, especially for humans. If there is any unexplained illness or death in any backyard flocks or in cats, we are asking them to be reported to the health department. And it's just a good rule of thumb, but just even a more important reminder, do not feed or consume raw milk, either to yourself, your family, or to pets. We know that there is the virus in the raw milk. It can be in the raw milk supply, and that can be a mode of transmission, especially to pets. And there have been a few recalls where raw pet food they have found linked to or have virus within the raw pet food. So that's something else that we would ask the residents to avoid.
Hey, Chris, a lot of our residents have bird feeders in their yards. Is that a cause for concern?
No, I mean, if you have, I would say the biggest concern that would be is for residents who also have backyard flocks. So if they have chickens, you would want to make sure to probably remove the bird feeder, or make sure that they're not near each other, because what we don't want is wildlife mixing with chickens. But the general resident who just has a bird feeder in their backyard, I think it's completely fine. But be mindful that if they do start seeing sick birds at the bird feeder, and just generally cleaning, bird seed can get moldy and stuff too. So there's just other general health, cleaning out the bird feeder and everything on a regular basis. But just be mindful of watching the birds, but not a concern. Moving on to accreditation. As we discussed at our last Board of Health meeting, we did submit for accreditation our initial application on the January 2nd. We were notified of the results of our initial documentation review. Of the 203 documents we uploaded, we did get 12 that were kicked back for further review. And there were mostly, some of them were things that we weren't surprised that got kicked back, but some of them, we were a little surprised, but it was nothing major, nothing that was a really red flag for the process. And basically, we uploaded all those last week, and we've already had a site visit team that's been assigned to us. So they will go through these additional documents, plus have another review of all the documents that we sent. And we expect probably late spring, most likely early summer, to be scheduled to have our site visit here, both virtually and then also here in person at the health department. At that in-person site visit, we'll have key interviews, so there'll be members from the governing body that might be asked to come meet with the site visit. Obviously, Kathy and I will have our own conversation, and then our external partners like the hospital, maybe neighboring health departments, also will talk, meet with the team just to get more information on how we interact and how we do our job to our residents. So our community health needs assessment. So every 3 years, the Department of Health, in combination with all of the health departments in the county and the county itself, plus our 2 hospital systems, come together for a community health needs assessment as part of the Greater Mercer Public Health Partnership. So this organization really does the real bulk of the work that is needed for community health planning here in the county. And it's really a unique partnership that we have here locally that's not seen elsewhere in the state and not really seen elsewhere in the country. And we're very, very lucky to have this close cooperation for competing hospital systems that pay jointly into one community health improvement plan, which is a requirement of the Affordable Care Act, that every 3 years hospitals that have nonprofit status have to do a community benefit analysis, and this is what that comes out of that process. So that process, which included feedback from our residents as part of our survey, and shout out to all of our Hamilton residents. We had by far the most respondents, which we're the largest municipality here in the county, but we blew away everybody. And as far as respondents goes, I think we had close to 1,000 respondents out of 2,000 respondents that for the survey, which is great. So we know that we have a solid, Hamilton, focused area here. And I did provide an infographic on our community health improvement plan and the needs assessment. So anybody, if you have, that has more data, Hamilton specific data, and then also data on what the plan and our health priorities are. But moving into the next 3 years, what we will be prioritizing is mental and behavioral health, with the overall goal of nourishing mental health and wellness for all and promoting a healthier community. Access to wellness, as for a goal in all of Mercer County, will have equitable access to physical, social, economic resources to achieve their own optimal health and well-being. Housing and built environment, with the goal of everyone in Mercer County having a place to feel safe and to call home in a thriving community. And maternal and infant health, for all birthing people and infants in Mercer County have equitable access to quality care, resources across, and continuing to improve health outcomes. So with that, all of that info and those overarching priority areas, we will take that those data to work with GMPHP and our Community Advisory Board, which is made up of many of the social service and social service agencies and community partners within the county who have anything to do with public health, that will create the community health improvement plan, which actually sets out smart objectives and actionable steps for each of those priority areas. And one example for our housing and built environment is implementing Vision Zero, which is something that Hamilton has already started, which is great to see that, you know, not typically something that is seen within the public health space, but obviously reducing injuries, including road fatalities and injuries, is definitely public health, and that's something that is specifically called out in this this chip for the next 3 years, which is great to see. As far as strategic planning goes, so this was covered in our last Board of Health meeting, and I shared this out also with our board. So this is where our strategic plan and our priority areas for the next 3 years internally for that Division of Health and where we're going. But as part of accreditation, we also need to make sure that we're monitoring. We're not just saying like, oh, here's our strategic plan, but actually we have to monitor it and actually do the strategic plan. So as far as going into the new year and when we adopted the strategic plan in October, so far we have started our, we're already doing records retention, but more of a streamlined approach and just renewing and updating our records retention plan to make sure that we're ready to make the move and we take as least amount of paperwork as possible, because I don't want to take all of our boxes except what's required over to the new building. Leveraging leadership, which is our second goal. So connecting the division's values with our actions. So that's something that in the annual report, you'll see little hearts next to certain parts of the actions that the staff did last year, just that align with what our values are that we came up with for the division. We also have updated and we maintain an inventory of social services. So if any residents do need access to any social services, we have a pretty comprehensive list of places that they can be referred to. And this is something that we even partnered with the police department with their new program with Volunteers of America that helps out with some of the homeless population here in town. We actually provided our inventory of services to them, so they have another resource to provide, and vice versa, adding in that service into our own inventory. So we have it listed there as well, or it will be once we update it again moving forward. And then finally for our goal 5, we just went over our community health needs assessment, but it's also making sure that that needs assessment is linked in with our existing plans to make sure that it's built into what we're doing. So our health educators do an annual health education plan to plan out the year and what their health priorities are. So that is aligning that plan with our CHNA, and that also kind of aligns with our mayor's wellness campaign to making sure that all of the public health education that we do and wellness activities that we do align. So we're trying to make sure that everything that we do is in alignment with the plans that we're saying that we're doing, to making sure that we're not, doing anything that's, or I guess we're hitting all the same metrics and that they're being aligned, and also making sure that they're being tracked. So we do have a performance management system, and that all is uploaded into there, so that way the staff can track the different metrics that they're doing throughout the year. And finally, moving on to our animal shelter. So our current census, we have 37 dogs, so that means 1 dog is in a crate right now. We have 38 cats on site, and we have 13 animals in foster. It's 6 dogs, 6 cats, and 1 rabbit. In 24, we had a live release rate of 95%. And just as a reminder, generally, your shelter can be considered a no-kill shelter if you exceed 90%, which over the last 4 years, we have been, proudly, we've been able to exceed that rate. We also have had a return to owner rate of 68%. So that means of all the dogs that come in straight to the shelter, 68% of them have been able to be returned to their owners. Year over year, it's about the same, a little bit of a slight increase this year over last year. And the staff does, as we get stray dogs that come in, they do get posted to our social media pages, and then they get shared out to some of the other lost and found group pages that exist in the area.
Hey, Chris, how are we doing with the social media efforts?
So social media, I mean, we're doing better. I mean, we can always room for improvement, and it really depends on, I think, staff ability and staff time to get out and create the graphics. We've been working with the mayor's office to making sure that, as we get in new animals, we get updated photos. And then we did work with the mayor's office to do our latest ad campaign for Valentine's Day. So hopefully everybody saw some of those cute graphics that got posted, but that was a newer partnership between the mayor's office staff and the shelter too. But there's always room for improvement, and we know that sometimes there can be gaps in when things are getting scheduled in and posted, but we're getting better. And we expect, as we get some more staff, hopefully, in that will also relieve some of the staff, the time Danielle has to post towards that or to work towards social media.
Are you short-staffed right now?
We're currently full staff, but I did ask, eventually, we'll talk about it at our budget hearing, but I did ask for staff, so just putting
on the corner.
pleasant thoughts out there, positive thoughts.
We've been offering for 3 years. We'll probably make the offer.
So other highlights that we had, we've issued just over 3,700 dog licenses in 24, which is an increase from 23, and it's continued to increase year over year. Rabies clinics, we had 5 clinics, 870 vaccines given, which is funny, the exact same that we had in 23. As far as volunteers go, we had 2,460 hours of service, which is great, which is equals to a value of just over $82,000, which is phenomenal, and a great shout out to our volunteers and our volunteer program for all the help that they do. And as far as rescues go, we had 15 animals last year transferred into rescues. So an update to our volunteer program. So finally, we have been able to onboard a new volunteer coordinator who started last week. We're very excited. We are sharing her with the tennis center. So there will probably be a little bit of gap in time where she'll be focusing on opening the tennis center when that opens. But she does have animal experience, and I think it will be, and the personality to help us out at the shelter when she's there. So we're really excited to get her up and moving and taking over that volunteer program.
How new is that?
Last week.
Oh, great.
Yeah. So literally just, I think if she only has a few hours on. So I'm hoping somewhere between 10 and 12 hours a week. It might be more to start, and then it'll probably taper off, eventually. But really just to, be a point person for our volunteers to help launch new programming, keep continued lines of communication opening, doing the volunteer orientation more regularly. And then also what I really want to see is, just kind of open meetings, whether that's quarterly or some other cadence that's decided between the volunteers and then the leadership at the shelter as well, just to have, again, more open lines of communication. And I would like that person to take the lead on scheduling that and facilitating that. I know we always get a lot of questions on, who are our volunteers? So we technically have, as of today, we're recording 45 active volunteers. So that means that they volunteered in the last 4 months. So it's kind of a rolling number. So depending on when people fall off or come back on. So as of today, we have 45 volunteers. 17 are pretty much just cat volunteers. And then the other 28, we have 17 volunteers who are able to walk our green dogs, or basically are the easiest dogs that, any of us can go out and walk. 8 that can do our blue dogs, which, they still fairly easy. Maybe they're just really strong and you just need, to be able to hold on to them, or there just might be little quirks here and there. Our yellow dogs, we have 3 volunteers who can walk those dogs. And those are going to be a little bit more difficult, stronger dogs, or, again, need just more experience in handling those dogs. And to match that, we only have 1 green dog at the shelter, who is very cute, by the way.
I wanted to bring him.
Yes. He came in, he was he's unfortunately extremely emaciated, but complete sweetheart. So if anybody is looking for a, Velcro, clingy, tiny little dog,
Did you bring a
super
picture?
cute. I did not bring him here.
I'm
No.
looking it up right now.
Yeah.
Oh, geez.
I think they just posted him on the shelter page maybe a couple last week. I think a little black pit mix dog.
If you'd like an appointment.
Yes. Oh, and then we have 12 blue dogs, 15 yellow dogs, and then 5 dogs, which are more difficult and only handled by staff, or they're only handled by staff. Some new updates. So because the McManaman building where we normally have our rabies clinic is under construction currently, thanks to the recreation staff for making the Switlick Park Pavilion available to us. The staff love it, so I don't think that Rec is going to get their building back rabies clinic free, but we definitely have had a lot of positive feedback over the location change, both from the staff and then from the residents as well. I do realize, and it has been noted, that there is a different clientele that did take advantage of the rabies clinic at Switlick, so we're going to make sure that we do still at least do one clinic at McManaman once it's ready to and finished to be utilized, just because we know it's a more easily walkable, accessible area for some of our residents as well. So we'll make sure that we hit both areas. But like I said, we're very appreciative of the last minute change and ability to utilize Switlick. And the next clinic is March 8th in the morning, and that'll be our last clinic until December, which will most likely be over at McManaman. Just an update. So we did, at the end of December, we had all 36 of our dog runs repainted. So we did all of the walls, because that was really where the biggest, really the failure of the last coat was happening, was on the walls. Most of the floors were fine, but we did have 9 floors that were recoated as well, because they were cracking or peeling. So so far so good. Once the weather warms up and we're able to start power washing again, we will see how this coating is holding up. But as of right now, it looks good. And hopefully it lasts for a few more years. So, and we don't have to do this in another 3 years, but TBD. But we're glad that it worked out well, and we were able to work with our partners, and a big shout out to both Bark, Timberlane, and, oh my God, why am I blanking on the third kennel? Anyway, we had 3 kennels that were able to take a fair number of our dogs. We had to empty out each side of the kennel completely so that the workers could get in their paint. So we were able to work with 3 vendors who boarded our dogs off-site during this project, so which it worked out well, especially during the holidays as well. So we were very appreciative of them working with us in that regard. I had this up last time as well, and I know Kathy mentioned, CQI and our continuous quality improvement. We know that we're not perfect, and we're trying to address concerns both from the board, from the administration, from our residents, and even from the staff. They have their own, and making sure that we're continuing to improve, because that's what we want to do. Is we want to continue to improve, and that's what we have to do. So as far as some of those updates go, I know we brought up social media. That's always a constant thing. So we did have this promotion that went out. So we did get some. We weren't inundated, but we definitely got some very happy people to donate $10 to us, and we're very thankful for their $10. And we'll send out thank you notes to all of those individuals that we have contact information for. And it was just also a nice way to remind people that they can make online donations as well, and in regards to even just coming to the shelter in person. So that went out well. And then additionally, we did kind of 14 days of love for all of some of the shelter animals that we have in there that don't typically get promoted. So we're looking to do that more, and if anybody has creative ideas, whether that's residents or administration or council, St. Patty's Day is coming up, so if anybody has any clever ideas for St. Patty's Day and even the World Cup coming up as well, because I look at some of our neighboring shelters who do some pretty fun media events and social media and stuff like that. So we're trying to be a little bit more creative and fun, but we want to make sure that the most important information of connecting strays and lost animals with their owners is obviously the most important thing, and then making sure that we have the info that's updated and getting out there for the animals that we do have available for adoption.
Chris, the $10 donations, how are donations being used?
So our policy right now is to use donations for excessive medical costs, but then we've also used to offset the board and train for a few of the dogs that we've sent to bark who have been placed into, we've had pretty good success with those dogs being placed into adoption homes. So those are the two expenses that we utilize donation funds for, except if there's a specific, let's say, marker that somebody puts on, or a specific request. Like sometimes they'll ask to offset a cost of a dog's donation or a dog's adoption fee or something like that, and then we try to do our best to honor those wishes as well. But if it's just general placed in there, the priority is excessive medical. So really anything probably over $4,000 or so that it's kind of outside of our normal budget. Last year we had, I think it was last year, we had a dog that required, a $6,000-7,000 surgery, and we were able to cover that cost, both through specific donations and then also the donations that came in previously out of that were in that account.
Are you still accepting food and materials?
Yes.
As donations?
Yeah, we still do. I mean, sometimes we run out of space, which is great. It's a great problem to have, and we're very thankful for all of the donations that we do receive. But cash is always easier because it takes up less space. But we will not turn away anything. So.
When you have received donations that are beyond your capability
Yeah.
of storage, they have sent them over to the food pantries.
Yes.
For those who have animals that might be able to benefit from that because we had excess.
Yeah,
Okay.
that is a good point. And then as we routinely, the staff goes through, and if things expire or if it's stuff that we can't really use, we do also send stuff to the Mercer Wildlife Center as well, especially expired food. Or if it's, if we get food that's been open or it's not in its original container, instead of throwing it out, the Wildlife Center does make use of that as well. And that's something that we do give to them as well. So we try to make the donations go as far as possible. And of course, we get a number of residents who ask for, help with assistance with food and other supplies, and they'll come to the shelter, and we're able to assist them as well, which is nice that we're able to provide that service for those who just need a little carryover from time to time.
I don't want to jump ahead if you were planning to talk about this, but we have a resolution on our council agenda tonight for professional services agreement for veterinary services. How are we doing with keeping up with our obligations as far as, I know there's been a kind of in the past, like a shortage of veterinarians willing to take on contracts with municipalities. It was a problem larger than just our animal shelter. So how are we doing with that?
So yes, it's still a problem, which is why we went out to bid twice in 24, and we got 0 responses, and we had, to put it nicely, 0 feedback from our municipal vets in town as well. Eventually we had a couple decent conversations about, I think people felt bad that we were struggling, and that we're open to it. But our vets are busy. There is a shortage of vets around, and then have to take on basically a whole new almost practice, in the amount of animals that we have here, at the shelter and that we bring to the vet. It's a big lift, but thankfully we were able to work with our existing vet who agreed to stay on in a limited capacity until we found a new vet, and also was able to identify one of her relief vets for the practice that's who we're onboarding. We met with her, and I think she'll be a good addition. She's already familiar with Princeton Animal Hospital because she's a relief vet there. So it still allows us to kind of continue to working with them as our preferred animal hospital. But then also, we will continue to use North Star for emergency vet services, Mansfield as well, and the other neighboring vets who just to kind of spread out some of the costs for our vet care as well, and also just the load that for the animals.
One of my colleagues pointed out that for other health services, the health department will use nursing students to help provide those services.
Yeah.
Is there any possibility of utilizing veterinary students to help provide services?
I'd say it's a great question. I have previously reached out to the new vet school at Rowan, and they were, I think by the time they weren't interested at the time. I don't even think they've had their first class, where they're still in the accepting applications, and they're still kind of opening. It would be a limited capacity, I think, just due to our geographic location. I think if we had a vet school that was closer, it would be a different story, because then at least getting experience with clinical hours or pro bono surgeries, things like that, spay-neuter stuff, then that would be an area where I could see kind of an academic partnership excelling. But because that's what we have with TCNJ and our nursing students, that the nursing students are able to come in, they work underneath our existing nurse or nurses, and they're able to get their clinical hours. We don't have a vet on staff, so we would not have, there wouldn't be somebody that they'd be working under their license unless they came, the proctor came with them to do that. But it's worth reaching out, even just if there is special surgeries. Sometimes that we can, at least they'll do it for free or at reduced cost, because it might be something special that they want to expose their students to. So it is worth having a conversation again. But for what we need on a regular basis, working with a vet school, it wouldn't work out. As far as I know, I mean, that could always change.
We're not completely ruling it out. As Rowan's new program gets up and running, you'll revisit that?
Yeah, absolutely. And Penn has their own program too. They have their vet program, and it's always worth, at least, I have not reached out to Penn in regards to their veterinary program, but it's worth reaching out and exploring those options for sure.
Great.
Well, that checks off another one of our updates. So as far as the generator and phones go, again, that's in progress. I know we are very excited to eventually have new phones at the shelter as well, but I know that there's that's on IT's list. And then the generator, I believe that they're still waiting for permits or the weather to break to move on that. I did reach out for an update on that, but I have not been able to get a better update than that for the generator. Just for disclosure, we did have, and it was brought up to me, we did have a little bottleneck in some of our cats moving from intake to adoption. So we do separate for our cats as they come in. They're in a different part of the shelter, and then they move to the public adoption side. So we did have, between the holidays, the changing in vet service, and then also just some really difficult cats and some cats that were on 45-day quarantine due to bites of unknown origin. There was a little bit of a bottleneck there where we had a lot of cats waiting in intake and not moving over to the adoption room, but that has since been taken care of. And then the perennial requests that we know that we get from our residents and from council in regards to making sure that all dogs are walked. we did put in a resource request, and, it's a conversation that we look forward to having, at our budget hearing. But it's something that the staff does need to get better at. I will not, I'll leave it at that. I mean, the staff needs to get better at walking more dogs more regularly. And we're very thankful for, our volunteers that come in, but obviously, the volunteers, and especially in the colder weather, we see a little bit of a lull in the volunteers coming in and walking, and, rightly so. I mean, we've had some pretty brutal cold days, and the dogs don't even want to go out for walks either. They take a step back out, and then they run back in. And so it's something that I think we have to come up with a better plan, but, it's with matching the volunteers with the right types of dogs, which changes on a regular basis.
Which I'll just jump in, is one of the priorities of our volunteer coordinator.
Yeah.
That's one of her tasks that she's going to be given, so that once she meets all of these other volunteers, that they can communicate more regularly, and maybe she can entice them to come in and walk the dogs more regularly, and hopefully we can accommodate that request.
Yeah, and on top of that, we've now, thankfully, and hopefully it lasts for a long time, is, we are finally, at capacity. We're not greatly over capacity. I know I shouldn't have said that even out loud, but there should be more staff time to take on some and walking some of these dogs more regularly. But the requirement is, it's the crated dogs that are required to the dogs in kennels technically are not required by state law to be walked. But that does not mean that it's not beneficial for them to be walked on a more regular basis. So it's something that, this is the area that we will try to make a priority in 2025 to, make sure that this is addressed on a more regular routine basis.
Just before you go on.
Yeah, well, that was it. So
You had, made mention that you're waiting for permits from the generator?
The last update that I got from Public Works, and I'm not sure if, Kathy, if you have a better update, but that they were waiting for permits to be pulled for the generator.
Permits from the township or somewhere else?
It would be from the township.
We have our staff meeting tomorrow with Public
I mean,
Works, so we'll talk
this should
to,
seem like it's,
we'll get an update tomorrow.
yeah, it should be a quick fix if it's permits from our own departments. No.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm not sure if it's been fixed or if there's or it's just been the weather and stuff that we've had with the snow and the cold, but hopefully we can get a better update for you guys.
Thank you.
That concludes our report. Have any other questions for Chris or Rick?
No, great job.
This is not really a health board related question, but since you mentioned generators, Kathy, have we made any progress on the senior center generator?
I don't know the latest update on that yet either.
Okay.
I do know that the vendor was there with Public Works and my staff probably about a month ago.
Okay.
So I'm sure that they're looking into the plans.
Close it
and
in.
Submitting
All right.
their permit process as well.
Okay.
That's good.
Yes, I just had a quick question. As far as trainings for volunteers, do we do that on like a, quarterly basis? Is it after how many volunteers have signed up? And what are we doing to publicize that side of things? We're doing a lot for adoption, but what are we doing for recruitment of volunteers?
No, I think that's a good question. And I know the information for volunteers is on the website. I think it's probably been a little bit that we've specifically promoted volunteering. A lot of the billboards that we have throughout town, I mean, our normal message is, donate, volunteer, adopt. So it kind of just gets rolled into that message as far as volunteering goes. Normally, so it's kind of two parts. I believe they're monthly volunteer meetings for at least new orientation, but there also needs to be a minimum number of volunteers. So if we don't get, I believe it's 5 or more, then that will roll over to the next month. So it does not always happen on a monthly basis, but we try to at least make it worth everybody's time. And then once they do that initial orientation, then they get dog handling training with one of our staff members as well. So then that's how they get assessed and eventually move up in the types of dogs that they're able to handle.
And what's the minimum age?
18.
18.
Nancy, I
Thank
just
you.
wanted to piggyback on
Yeah.
what Chris said. So, our volunteer coordinator position doesn't sound like a lot of hours, but the portfolio this person came with and the experience that I've seen her give us, and actually writing some great procedures, even for our tennis center, I have a lot of faith in her. It has to be faith. But I do have a lot of confidence that she will really bring to the table in the next 2 months some good stuff for us and get our volunteer program up and running. And I'm pretty confident on that. So I hope at our next meeting, Chris can report even greater information for you.
Thank you. I'm glad to hear that she's on board.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you, and thanks to
Yeah.
the administration for that.
Yeah, and our plan is to have her there also on site Thursdays and Saturdays. So when our evening hours and weekend hours, we know we have the most volunteers, so at least that they can have some face-to-face time. And that was a requirement for the position. Is it might not be necessarily every single Saturday, but it would be most Saturdays of the month.
Thank you.
Unless anybody on council has any more, we need to set up to allow public questions and comments. We've been. Oh, bad.
Yeah.
You can cross the town line.
No, you can't.
Yeah. No, I hear what you're saying.
Thank you, everyone. Any members of the public who wish to comment or question for the Lisa?
Good evening, Lisa Williams. I'm honestly not sure if this is a question for you guys, so if it's not, and you guys want to punt me to the public portion at the end, that's fine. So we used to have, I'll call it a set fee schedule for animal-related incidents that appear in court. So it used to be, and this, when I say used to be, I'm going to say the end of 23, beginning of 24. So if you were in court the first time for an incident and you pled guilty, the fee was $100. If you said, oh, I want a trial, and you're found guilty, the fee was $250 first time. And then each incident above that went up $250. So the second time, if you pled guilty for the same thing, I'm just going to use dog running at large because that's the one I know so well. So if you were then charged the second time for your dog being at large and you chose to plead guilty, the fine was $350. If you said, nope, I want to take this to trial, the fine would be $500 for the next time. Do we still have that?
We haven't repealed that. If we had a,
So, as a general matter, not the animals, the judge has discretion for what the fines are. So, for example, a violation of any of our ordinances, if there isn't a specific set fee, it starts at $250 and it goes up to $2,000. And so, or up to 90 days in jail or community service. So, depending on, and this is a judicial discretion, depending on the seriousness of the violation, whether the judge recognizes you because you keep coming back on the same thing.
Wish it was the same judge because it would have been held.
But, and so there, and I've been at municipal court enough times, not necessarily animal matters, but on other matters where I am, if I'm bringing the same landlord again, it does go up and up and up. With regard to animal violation, I need to pull the ordinance for that, because I haven't looked at that recently. Just if you give me a moment and everybody else can talk, just hold on
It's okay.
one moment.
I've just recently had a not so great experience, and I like to go for a walk, and I just got a second dog. It's going to be a little hard if people can't secure their dogs. It's kind of a problem. And no, she's not eligible for a dog license yet, guys. She'll be 8 weeks old tomorrow. I got a boxer puppy. A friend knew someone who had a litter that needed homes, so she just came home yesterday. I'd like to walk her eventually down the street and not have a dog who knows how to open a door come at me again, and these people have not been held accountable.
Was it a legal breeder?
Say it was outside Hamilton.
It absolutely is outside Hamilton, actually. That's not even made up. It's someone who has a male and female and didn't get around to spaying and neutering in time, and oops, now we have a litter and looked for homes, friends of friends. So I was fortunate enough to get a very adorable
Well, congratulations.
boxer.
All right, so according to 10815, violations and penalties of the Animal Act, any person who violates any of the provisions of this chapter shall, upon conviction, be subject to the penalties in Chapter 1.-2, which is our general violation statute, which is what I was talking about before. So 1-2 violation penalties states as follows. General penalty is a fine not exceeding $2,000, or by imprisonment of a term not exceeding 90 days, or for a period of community service not exceeding 90 days in the discretion of the judge. So, and then continuing violations, each successive day is separate offense, additional remedies. The imposition of a penalty is provided in subsection A, which I just talked about, shall be in addition to any injunctive or remedial relief, which is authorized under the laws of the state. So I've done that before in other cases where I've gotten the judge to order the defendant to do something in addition to being fined. And then subsection D of 1-2 is repeat offender, which is what I was talking about. Any person who's convicted of violating an ordinance within 1 year of the date of a previous violation of the same ordinance and who is fined for the previous violation shall be sentenced by a court to an additional fine as a repeat offender. The additional fine imposed by the court upon a person for a repeated offense shall not be less than the minimum or exceed the maximum fine fixed for a violation of the ordinance, which is $2,000, but shall be calculated separately from the fine imposed for the violation of the ordinance. So it would be $2,000, which is the maximum fee, plus $2,000 on top of that, or again, jail. So yes, it is in our ordinance that but it is up to the discretion of the judge and the prosecutor, and what is in many cases there's a plea deal, so that's negotiated even prior to going to the judge, and the judge approves it or disapproves it, and that's happened too.
Okay, so I'm going to try to be quick, but in the interest of supporting shelter dogs, and we all want to be a no-kill shelter, there need to be places these dogs can live. And what I have lived through for 4.5 years since I adopted a dog during the pandemic of loose dogs has caused me to be like, I don't know that I can bring a dog in that I need to work with. So, I was like not into puppies, and somebody's like, you want a boxer puppy? I'm like, that's probably all I can have around here, so sure, and I love boxers. But people need to be held accountable to contain their dogs. And I'm not going to get into breeds, I'm not going to get into names, but the scenario that happened in 23 into 24, first time I didn't file a citizen's complaint, there were witnesses, my Ring cameras didn't function. The next 2 times I filed citizens' complaints. So that's how I know how this works, because back then that prosecutor explained to me the process. Then I have an issue at the end of 24, and again, every time I file something in Hamilton Township's court department, I get different answers on whether I need to show up or not show up.
So Lisa, I know we had you waiting, but I think even beyond that, you're out of time. We can bring you back up for a second turn at the mic after other folks have had a chance to speak. Would anybody else like to come on up, Steve?
Steve Clegg, Wolfpack Road. I may have a little trouble organizing my thoughts on this one. This week, the shelter will likely schedule a dog to be euthanized for poor quality of life. He's possibly got a abdominal mass, maybe a bladder stone. He's had regular incontinence since he's been there. But there's a little more to this story I want to tell. If you remember, just about 18 months ago, 20 months ago, there was a dog scheduled to be killed. It came after a seriously flawed behavior assessment and a seriously flawed process to check that euthanasia decision. Thanks to Pat's intervention, we did not kill the dog that time. Subsequent to that, another assessment was done, which rated the dog even worse. It wasn't even a finished assessment. And on top of that, a week after that, the dog needed to go to the vet for medical issues that should have been caught before they decided the first time he was going to be killed. So a week after the dog was deemed too dangerous to handle, he was taken to the vet, and the vet's notes: we muzzled him as a precaution for x-rays, but he was cooperative and showed no abnormal behaviors throughout the exam or x-rays, other than some resistance to restraint. A week after he was declared too dangerous to handle. We all know I've stood up here dozens of times saying these assessments are flawed. We've proven them wrong. I've offered, I've asked, I've begged to take these dogs out. So we didn't kill Hercules 18 months ago. His assessment, done while he was about 15 pounds underweight, emaciated, had a urinary infection, had sores on his body, was mostly based on he was given a bowl of food and it was taken away. And he reacted like a dog. He growled. So we didn't kill him for that, but we did punish him for it. Because from then until last week, even though his rating is he can only be taken out by staff don't take him out. The trainer, I can't find any indication, has interacted with this dog since that second flawed assessment. This is wrong. We've punished the dog for that. For an older dog with a urinary infection, being constrained to a space with no exercise, that it can only exacerbate those problems, and it has. Sometime middle of last year, the vet even noted some muscle atrophy in his legs, a risk of a bladder stone. I've still asked to take him out, and I can't. So the end of last month, I was given an email that explained his health condition, and I asked again, can I take him out? And I was allowed, as long as one of the staff took him out. But there's only one staff person that was willing to do that. That person has taken him out, to clarify, several times over his time there, which amounts to once every couple of months. I go, I watch this person take him out. Like a normal dog at the shelter, he grabs at the leash when you're reaching. She hands him a toy, he grabs a toy, she puts a leash on his neck. We go out. Friendly dog. We're out for 2 hours. We walk. He climbs into my car. He gets in the back. He lays down. I hand him his toy. I take the toy away. He's got no guarding issues. He's got no aggression. He's not unable to be handled. And in 2 years, that's his 2 hours out of the kennel. So I've brought, since we started reforming the shelter, the main issue that I've always brought up for why so many animals were killed was two things. One, that there was a single person able to say, this dog can't be touched by volunteers, can't be handled, can't be seen, too dangerous. And there's no recourse to that. We know the previous shelter manager did that a lot. It was the biggest claim, and nobody could contest that. liability of township. It's dangerous.
Steve, your
I,
time is
give
up.
me like 30 seconds.
Okay.
So that's what I want to bring up. And we're going to need to revisit this. It was something I had put into an ordinance that was proposed, and we did a big wait and see. We've seen we're still failing in this, and to their credit, they've both acknowledged it. I've had some conversations with Chris, and we are working on some time to sit down and talk with this. It's just been a scheduling issue, so it's not an adversarial thing at this point, but it is something that still needs to be addressed. And I didn't want this quality of life issue was not simply his medical issues. His quality of life issue is the lack of actual care there. We've done great on the vet care. He's been to the vet a lot, far more. He's gotten urinalysis, he's gotten x-rays, he's been taken care of. The cages are clean. But getting him out and treating him like a sentient being, we've missed that. And we've got at least, I thought 3, he said 5 today, more dogs that are going to be on that same track. I'd like to find a way to stop that.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, Steve.
Steve, hold on, before you go. The music you heard in the background was my phone because I was looking for your pictures
Oh,
of Hercules on your page.
Mhm.
So, I do, we obviously all care. This has come a long way, and the people that work in that department have been tremendous in getting this where it is.
I'm sorry, Councilman, is your mic on?
Do you have a problem hearing me? So, my comment is, the problem with an ordinance is we're not going to be taking employees to court as discipline, right? If you have an ordinance and you have an employee that doesn't get that dog out, we're not taking every employee, because that's not the way personnel matters are handled. So, we've gone back and forth about this for 5 years. And while I agree that some things need to happen, I don't necessarily think that the ordinance is the way to go. They're on the right track. I think you allow them, give them the opportunity to work with what we're doing now and give it a little more time.
I agree with that. Like I said, just some scheduling issues to talk to Chris, but it is in that, but it is an issue. Let's leave it that it is an issue we still need to resolve. And yeah, the other improvements are phenomenal. We see it in everything, but this was where it started. So,
Understood. Thank you.
Anyone else? Lisa, would you like to come back up?
Lisa Williams. So the incidents that occurred in 24. So in March, same dog lets itself out. I give the people benefit of the doubt that they don't know their dog can do this. Was unlicensed. Chris got it licensed. Thank you so very much. So there is township record that this dog escaped. Then we have another issue. Dog escapes. I file a citizen's complaint because I have video of it and I can prove it. And they go to court. And I rely on this structure and the judge who was so animal serious for the other situation. And I'm like, best case scenario, they'll learn their lesson, pay their $100 fine, and they'll fix the problem. Worst case scenario, they'll plead not guilty. I'll show up in court with my video. They'll pay $350 and have to fix the problem. No fine, $33 court costs. Nobody ever even reviewed the video or spoke to me as the complainant. So then same dog escapes. So that goes to court in October. 11 days later, dog escapes again, comes after me and my dog. And that was a pretty not good night. And again, I have video of that, and I file another citizen's complaint. And the first, it's Zoom. Talk to the prosecutor, is no longer a prosecutor, but this is just what I've lived through. And talk to her, I'm shocked in front of the judge that we're going to do a cooling off period of 90 days. If this dog doesn't escape again, we will dismiss the case. It got dismissed. This dog has come after my dog 3 times. what I live with, and you guys are probably sick of hearing, and I am quite honestly sick of living it, is why I haven't adopted a shelter dog. Because every time this happens, it sets back the work with my existing dog. How am I going to walk down the street with 2 dogs? So that's why I'm like, is this structure going to be in place, or what are we going to do? Same dog.
I refer back to your comment that the prosecutors who were working last year are no longer our prosecutors.
Okay. Because it seemed like the current prosecutor thought this was a problem, but he was stuck with, I'll call it the plea deal that was set. Because, I've taken vacation time and no penalty. That got dismissed. Seriously? Contain your dogs. And so we want to be no-kill shelter, and I fully support it because I think there is a home for most animals. But the entire town has to get on board with being responsible with their dogs that they get wherever they get them from. Many are puppies untrained.
Lisa.
So that people that are willing to adopt shelter dogs and have the skill to work with them don't have to deal with your loose dog letting itself out the yard. I mean, I've heard things like,
Lisa,
the gate was ajar.
your
Okay,
time's
I'm
up.
leaving. Thank you. We all need to be on board of containing your dogs.
Any other members of the public? Come on up, Steve.
Steve Clegg, Wolfpack Road. I know I sent you a list of questions, but I was just reminded of one. The licensing and the rabies vaccination requirement changed this year. The statute reads that the rabies vaccination must extend at least 10 months through the licensing year. I believe our licensing year is January to December.
It expires the 31st, that's what changed. Because technically, by the November, it would be a January 1 expiration date, but they expire on the 31st. So,
Chris, if you're going to talk a lot, you got to get near a mic.
Okay,
Sorry.
so the reason it came up was twofold. A lot of people asked me, and also I went to get one of my dogs a rabies vaccination in time, and the vets, were all booked with rabies vaccinations. And I contacted the rabies technician for the state to verify what I was just saying, and she's like, yeah, that's correct based on the licensing year, but it turned up 2 other issues that this has an effect on. One is obviously vet services. If we're condensing, the months that you can get a rabies vaccination for it to actually carry and get your money's worth, you're down to 2, possibly 3 months, which means that's when the rabies vaccine clinics are, that's when all the vets are being overloaded. And there's only one rabies technician for the state. So for 500 municipalities, when we're doing these clinics, she's got to get them all those vaccines ready for everybody and shipped and tracked and returned and logged. So it does create a resource contention beyond just this township within the vets and everything like that. So I just wanted to get it clarified what the actual requirement is. Thanks.
Thank you, Steve. Chris, do you want to step up to the?
Yeah, so for the rabies, so yes, so when we were looking back at so Steve is correct that it needs to be valid for 10 months of the 12-month licensing year. So the way that our ordinance is, so the dog license expires January 31, so it's really February 1 to January 31st.
All licenses in Hamilton?
Dog license.
Yeah, all dog
All
licenses.
dog
in
licenses,
Hamilton?
that's the licensing year based on when they expire. So that is what pushed the December 1 rabies date. But we know that, so that's why in the years past we've had November rabies clinics. We are now have a December rabies clinic this year. So if anybody is without of that time period, then they can get a rabies shot in December. We have 2 clinics in January normally, and then late fees don't start until March. So you have a grace period of 30 days in February as well, 28 days in February, 27 days. To get it, and there's also a rabies clinic there in February as well. So as far as it's an inconvenience to residents who probably felt without that in that time period that they were on that November time frame, and now it's moved to December. But I believe our capacity to get those animals vaccinated with our own free rabies clinic is fine. We've never had an issue getting rabies vaccine for our clinics. Sometimes there's different lot numbers, which is more of an administrative burden on our end because, each documentation has to have the specific lot number of the vaccine. But, we've been able to work it out with the state to get that taken care of, and it hasn't been an issue. If other towns have had issues, that's unfortunately, it's not necessarily within my jurisdiction or ability to influence. So, but, some places have, the counties have monthly rabies clinics as well. And then most vets have private stock, and they're not getting that from the state rabies program. That's private purchase, which is why you're paying to get that done at the vet's office. And then just, one comment quickly in regards to Mr. Clegg's, feedback on Hercules. We have to have some sort of baseline assessment. We have somebody that we've onboarded who has a nationally recognized certification. I do not have that. We do not have multiple staff members that have that. But it's only meant to be a point in time, and every single staff person that's at the shelter has the opportunity to provide feedback, and residents and volunteers can provide feedback on any of the animals that we have. And it should always be a continuing assessment, because dogs change, their personalities change, they're based on their time in the shelter, their decompressing, their health, whatever. So I always relate to the staff that if they see things that are changing, or it needs to be documented. So if it's not happening, I can't act on it because I'm only dealing with what is being documented and what's being told to me and relate up. So, if there is changes, or, in assessments or, behavior, we can change it. Doesn't mean that an animal can't get better. And a lot of times they do, or sometimes they could get worse and then they have to move up. Based on the feedback from the vet and the specific dog for Hercules, yes, we did not move forward with the initial decision for euthanasia. But at the end of the day, we're also not mass euthanizing dogs. We have less than a handful of dogs, extremely 2 or 3 or less, that we're making behavior decisions on an annual basis. So I don't, I'm well open to, and Mr. Clegg and I have spoken, and where I'm open to having the conversation, but and I thank the council's and the board's comment in regards to the proposed ordinance, because I do not think, and I agree that would not be a benefit to the staff or how we run the shelter as well, because I think that would hamstring us in ways that could be detrimental as well, even to staff morale and to staff performance. So that's why I do appreciate that comment.
Thank you, Chris. Unless Kathy, Chris, you have any additional closing comments, then we're going to go ahead and adjourn.
Just like to thank the board.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks,
Thank you.
everyone.
Thank
Thank you.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
Should we make a motion to adjourn and reconvene?
Oh, yeah.
Motion to adjourn.
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn the Board of Health and reconvene as council.
Second.
Second,
Mr. Carabelli.
Yes.
Ms. Phillips.
yes.
Mr. Railing.
Yes.
Mr. Patero. Yes. Mr. Cox.
Yes.
Moving on to resolutions, resolution 125-106 is resolution authorizing a person to place transfer of an active pocket alcohol beverage control license 1103-33042-007 from L2D Inc. of Hamilton Trading as Closest Tavern to El Toro del Fuego Corp. Trading as El Toro del Fuego, located at 628 Arena Drive.
So I'll just mention that I know that we have Sam Zhang here, and I appreciate you coming out this evening regarding this resolution, and hopefully that that establishment at 628 Arena Drive is one that is going to really work out for that location. I'm excited to hear that he's a business owner, already has several establishments, restaurant owner, does well at those establishments, so we're looking forward to having you at this location. I'll make a motion to move on resolution, oh, wait, we have to open up to the public, I'm sorry.
Any members of the public, Mr., any comment? You or anyone else wishing to comment on?
Yeah, you're fine.
Seeing no members of the public wishing to comment?
I look to close the public comment portion and move on resolution 125-106.
I'll second it.
Mr. Carabelli?
Yes.
Ms. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. Whalen?
Yes.
Mr. Reparo?
Yes.
Mr. Todd?
Yes.
Resolution 2, 25-107. This is a resolution authorizing the place-to-place transfer, expansion of premise for an outdoor patio for alcohol beverage control license 113-3303-9005, the Old Nottingham Tavern LLC, treating it as the Old Nottingham Tavern.
Any comments from council? Any members of the public wishing to comment? Seeing none, may I have a motion?
Council President, I'll make a motion to close public comment and move on resolution 2, 25-107.
Second motion.
Mr. Carabelli?
Yes.
Ms. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. Whalen?
Yes.
Mr. Reparo?
Yes.
Mr. Todd?
Yes. So before we get into the consent agenda, just need to let everyone know that there's been an amendment to the agenda since it was posted on the website. We are removing consent agenda item number 4, 25-111, which was or is a resolution authorizing a labor agreement between the Township of Hamilton and the Communications Workers of America, Local 1040, lower level supervisors for the period of January 1st, 2025 to December 31st, 2028. And we look forward to seeing that back on the agenda soon. Just a few other notes regarding the agenda. We have a couple of appointments. We have a Sustainable Jersey grant. We have municipal alliance funds coming to us via the county. We have a memorandum of understanding to continue to provide wastewater services to Robbinsville. There will be a 2.25% increase in revenue from Robbinsville Township. There's a renewal of our agreement with Grounds for Sculpture to display the art throughout the township. There are items to purchase 2 vehicles and a tractor, all of which were previously approved. The veterinary services consent agenda item, which was previously discussed. And then on second reading, we're going to have a pedestrian safety measure for the Safe Routes to School project. So with that, Madam Clerk, we'll proceed with the consent agenda. Any comment from public?
No, the one comment I'll make is CA 18, I'm just going to need to, that's 25-125. I'm just going to have to abstain again on that one because of my relationship with, my family relationship with the owner of Martin Appraisal Associates.
All right.
I noticed that one, the amount of that doubled. Any CA 18? Martin Appraisal Associates, just doing a lot of, it's due to the high level work of the Economic Development Department.
Yes.
Okay, well, they're working hard. Fred and his team. Okay. All right. Any other comments from council? Seeing none. Members of the public wishing to comment on the consent agenda items. Hello, Janice. Come on up.
Janice Clark, 432 Trinity Avenue, Cornell Heights. CA 14, exactly what is that? Pump station, is it like a pump station on this is Whitehead Road? Is that a building or something that has this thing in it, or what?
So a pump station is part of our wastewater sewer infrastructure, getting the, everything's straight downhill, so we need pump stations to keep the wastewater moving. And so these facilities require maintenance. We have aging facilities. There's just a cost to keeping these facilities running properly.
Okay. I just saw something new and exciting was coming up on Whitehead Road. So I said, good grief. All right. Thank you.
We have a number of them throughout the town.
Like the burnt down building, that.
No.
That's a different matter. Okay. Any other members of the public wishing to comment on any consent agenda items? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to move forward with CA1 through CA24 with my one abstention on CA18.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Madam Clerk?
On the motion, Mr. Carabelli with your one
Abstention,
abstention
yeah,
and
yeah.
the removal of CA4.
Yes.
Ms. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. Whalen?
Yes.
Mr. Patero?
Yes, with no abstentions.
Mr. Tsai?
Yes.
Ordinance 25-002.
Before I go.
Oh,
It's okay.
I'm sorry. Ordinance accepting temporary and permanent construction easements for the 2018 Safe Routes to School project, Proctor Elementary School, pedestrian safety improvements, federal project number TAD00S 411, state job number 6503342. It's a second reading and public hearing.
Any members of council wishing to comment? Any members of the public?
Should we explain it?
Chanel's coming up.
Hi, Chanel, 301 Ridge Avenue. I just wanted clarity on what is the safety plan for that location.
That's a great question.
You should have known I was going to ask.
Kathy, can you help us with?
So it's, as far as I know, without looking at the whole plan, it's safe sidewalks right to school.
You can show me later. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, you'd have to look at the map to see the whole plan, but it's really just sidewalks to make sure that they can have pedestrian traffic to the school on a very busy street and area and intersection. So they needed to, these are getting the easements that are required in order to make the sidewalks. That may not be there.
Or anything else,
Right.
like anything else. Right, like, in order to make the pathway for the sidewalks, any other work that needs to be done.
Okay,
I think
so-
some of the homes surrounding that school are probably around 100 years old, so they had the old narrow sidewalks. So this is going to, improve that.
And does that plan include the flashing crosswalk signs? Or is it only, Ms. Janice, don't laugh at me.
Sidewalks.
Or is it just
I'm
the
not sure
construction of the
exactly.
sidewalk?
I know this particular action is really just to get the easements
Easements, yeah.
necessary. So I can have somebody that can provide some of those details in the plan for that so that you can see overall what it is.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, any other members of the public? Janice, did you have your hand up?
Well, I just wanted to know what it was.
All right. Seeing no other members of the public wishing to comment, can I have a motion?
Move to close the public portion and move on ordinance number 1 on second reading, 25-002.
Second motion.
Madam Clerk?
Mr. Carabelli?
Yes.
Ms. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. Whalen?
Yes.
Mr. Patero?
Yes.
Mr. Tsai?
Yes.
Passes 5-0. Ordinance 25-003 is an ordinance amending and supplementing the code of the ordinances, Hamilton Township, New Jersey, Chapter 215 fees, Section 215-12, marriage ceremonies.
I move ordinance 125-003 on first reading and introduction.
I'll second.
Mr. Carabelli?
Yes.
Ms. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. Whalen?
Yes.
Mr. Patero?
Yes.
Mr. Tsai?
Yes.
This is 5.
All right, and now we will open it up to comment from members of the public on any issue that you wish. Did anyone sign up? No one signed up, so if anyone wants to come up, you can just come on up. Does not appear that any members of the public wish to make any more comment at this time, so I will open it up to council comment.
So I guess I'll kick things off. Don't have too much to say, but I just want to mention that I had the honor to attend the St. Patrick's Day Parade, the luncheon, where we had our Grand Marshal, Todd Faulkner, and Miss St. Patrick Riley Carr. I know Chuddy was there with me, and it was a really nice event. Looking forward to the March 8th. Hopefully, knock on wood, we have good weather, because that hasn't been great weather over the last 3 years, but hopefully it's good. Not since he was Grand Marshal. So, we're looking forward to that parade, as, everyone's Irish for a day. So, looking forward to that. So.
As always, thank you, everyone, for coming out tonight. I think our Board of Health meeting went very well. It was a little long, but very informative. I think they're doing a great job, and they're keeping us up to date on anything that's happening that we need to be aware of, so that's a great thing. Hopefully, it looks like, in the beginning, I think it was Saturday or Sunday, they were talking about a nor'easter hitting us on Thursday, and we could possibly get a foot or more of snow, and everybody's panicking, and it's the last thing I think we want right now is a foot of snow, but it looks like that's been downgraded to maybe get an inch if we're lucky, so that's a good thing. But as always, it's cold out, be careful out there. If you know somebody needs help, point them in the right direction. The township could guide them, especially if they're having problems with heating. Other than that, safe travels, and again, thank you for coming out tonight.
Sure. I'll keep my comments short as well, but I do want to mention, a couple of us were talking before the meeting started, that we are getting good feedback from our constituents on the rabies clinics, that they're running smoothly. And as you can see, we've gotten many licenses. I'm happy to say my license is on my dog and came already. So great job to our health department for their report. Thank you to everyone who came out tonight, and hope you all had a good Valentine's Day and you can get home and get cozy warm and have a good night.
I'd like to thank everybody for joining us, first of all, especially the health department for the great report. Just some quick announcements. I know flu cases and the norovirus cases, I've had both in the past 3 weeks. So germs are out there. Wash your hands and try and stay away from large crowds if you can help it. But sometimes things are tough to avoid. If you need free tax filing assistance, you can go to the Hamilton Library, where you can do that for free online. Also, there's a Project Prom shop event. It's Sunday, February 23rd. There is an online catalog. You can see the township website for that as well. With that said, I'm unfortunately going to miss the next meeting, so I'll be away. I guess the next time I'll see everybody will be the St. Patrick's Day Parade. Fingers crossed for good weather. And it's a great community event. You get to see everybody, maybe since we haven't seen, because we've been hibernating for the past 8 weeks. But I look forward to seeing everybody, and thanks again for a great meeting. Thanks to the team and to Council President.
Yeah, and thanks to the Hibernians for all the work and the parade committee that they do to put on what is always a great community event. Always a phenomenal turnout, a lot of enthusiasm. I also want to thank our health department team. When you think about the restaurant inspections and how they raised the bar and have raised the bar again. So we're seeing a pattern of continued improvement, and I appreciate the receptiveness to feedback from the public in the ongoing effort to provide the best possible level of service. And at the animal shelter especially, often under difficult circumstances. So I want to thank everyone and wish everyone a good night. Stay safe during the snow, get your bread, and be ready, and we'll see you next time.
Red is on the agenda.